Shall we do it? There I am. Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome to your Sunday's edition of Talking Town. It's the 16th of August. It is 1 minute past 8. I do apologise, and Nick Muller is spot on with twice in one day. They call me Mr. Live. I'm Mr. Worldwide. I'm always live. Welcome into today's stream. We have got a jam-packed edition for you today. We really have. We've got Ollie Hawkins chat, Stephen Ward chat, David Cornell chat. We've got a chat from the Portsmouth News podcast. Don't know why I forgot that. It's fairly simple, isn't it, really? Coming on, we've had a chat from Northampton's top podcast. They're interviewing their chairman next week. That sort of transparency, that sort of honesty, that sort of openness from a club should be recommended. Wink, nudge, wink, nudge. My microphone is on for you, Mr. Lee O'Neill. But he is on the show, or I sat down with him earlier to grab his thoughts. So let's jump straight in. I'm going to welcome our first co-host, our first contributor. He is, of course, Mr. Matt Phillips. How are we doing, Mr. Phillips?
I'm good, thanks. That was a surprise. I didn't know I was going to get that build up.
There you go. Bring in the avalanche. Have you brought the shovel to help them out?
Yeah. It's all there for them. It's good everyone's coming back in here. We know the season's starting now, don't we? Now that everyone's kicking off with their pods and that. So it's all good. How you been anyway? You all good?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. I am busy doing several things, and I, of course, get a message saying, do us an intro, nah. And which, of course, from you. It was you, funnily enough. But, of course, every good tag team needs a partner, right?
100%.
We are missing the second part of Hard Truth. Guys, beware. Flash photography is coming your way right now. Mr. Moss, there he is, the cruncher. Welcome in.
Good evening.
How are we?
Loving that. You've been working hard all week. He's been working hard, hasn't he?
Yes. He's been moaning all week, but we didn't know he was working this hard. It's unbelievable.
So he's pulled it out of the bag, hasn't he?
Yeah,
we've got the avalanche.
I look taller than you, Matt. Look, you look like a midget compared to me.
You really do. So
I'm standing in a hole.
Good evening. Loving the intro, S. Thank you ever so much. Nick Muller, 11 watching, commenting. I've got Mr. Webb in our blue room, ready and waiting to discuss a latest possible addition to Portman Road, Ollie Hawkins. Before I get Mr. Webb and his a fantastic opinion, first of all, Matt, Rich, where do you two currently sit on the Hawkins transfer news?
Go on, Rich. I'll let you go first on that one.
I didn't know a lot about him. At first, I thought it was Ollie Watkins, and I thought, blimey, we got him from Brentford. He'd be good, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And then I had a look around. I looked on the YouTube, and there was a Pompey fan had posted a video of all his goals, and he looks quite handy. You know, get the ball in the box. He's 6'5", looks good in the air, which you would expect. Look. It is what it is. Let's see what he can do. Let's not judge him before he's come in the building. You know, I think he ticks both boxes now with a salary cap. He can play centre forward and he can play centre half. So he's versatile. Yeah, I'm all for it. I know Martin's a bit meh, but
you could say that. You could say that again.
Yeah, I agree with Rich 100%. I mean, I remember when he was at Dagenham and scoring goals in the National League. I think he got something like 18, 20 goals in. I think we were looking at him, weren't we, when we were looking at Kiefer Moore? And even then, we would have said, who the hell was Kiefer Moore? And look how he's done since. He didn't really set the world alight at town, but for whatever reason, they got the best out of him at Rotherham. And he went, was it Barnsley after that? And he went Wigan. And now he's a Welsh international. I mean, who would have thought that? He looked like a competition winner to me when he first signed for us. But yeah, 100%. And I think, that utility option, he's a striker and he can play at the back. And he said in interviews, I'm really comfortable playing in defence, would like to do more of it. So maybe that's part of Lambert's thinking. Now we've got this reduced squad and we've got the salary cap here. Whatever your thoughts are about that, it's good to have people in utility roles. And he's good from the penalty spot. He won them the Johnson's Paints, didn't he, from the spot, I believe.
Yeah, I believe it did, and I think maybe the pair of you combined there are probably right in terms of Lambert's style of thinking, and maybe that's why it's been delayed in terms of announcements. We know some Twitter accounts have tweeted it's done, it's dusted, but maybe it's waiting on a couple of things further up the food chain to get things moving. I would just question, and I'll obviously welcome Freddie's thoughts on this. If he's coming in as a centre half, why aren't Portsmouth, who have just lost Burgess to Belgium, why aren't they looking at him more seriously in the centre-half role? And if he's coming in as a striker, his stats for me, they don't scream. I know we're talking more or less the old-fashioned sort of second forward, but 11 games, 4 shots, 0 goals, 0 assists.
He played 7 games last year at centre-back, didn't he? But the season before, I think he got 7 goals. He got 9 assists. I don't think he's going to be a starter. I think it's a good option to have off the bench. And it's important with the size of him, you've got to get the quality of ball in, from set pieces and crosses. Because if you watch them highlights, you get the ball in the 6-yard box or around the penalty spot, he'll get his head on them,
But will he? Because I'm sure Portsmouth have been getting balls in the box. I mean, he's not being in the side because Ellie Harrison, the guy we've sold Portsmouth.
If it's all about opinions, Martin, it's all about opinions, Obviously,
certainly is. Well, I tell you what, I'll jump out and Mr. Freddie Webb can jump in, and you two can entertain Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, welcome into this evening's stream.
How's it going? You're all right.
Very well. Thank you for joining us. Ollie Hawkins, what are your thoughts? And obviously, there's the guys. Far away.
How you doing, Freddie?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's nice to be on here. With Ollie Hawkins, solid squad player. If you want to look at his stats properly, don't look at last season, because as much as he played as a centre half, he's not a centre half. You don't want him to be playing centre half for you. In 2 years ago, when Portsmouth lost in the playoff final to Sunderland, he was our main striker. And in the system that Kenny Jackett played, he was integral to it. He gave the space to allow Jamal Lowe at the time and Ronan Curtis to score all those goals. Even though you look at his individual stats, I think in all comps 2 seasons ago, he got 10 goals and 9 assists, like you mentioned. Obviously not a traditional 20-goal striker like Norwood. But if you play him alongside Norwood in a 4-4-2, or let's say you play a 4-2-3-1 and have Hawkins on as the main number 9, he takes away so much space and is able to link up the play very well. He's a great player like that. In terms of last season, he got replaced by Ellis Harrison because, honestly, Ellis Harrison does everything that Hawkins can do, but is more mobile and he's more clinical with his head. And those are the main things. So strengths of the player, very good link-up play and hold-up play, like I mentioned. He's very good at receiving the ball, either from direct passing from the fullbacks or playing it short from the centre midfielder. And again, creating space is his main choice. And if you want to get James Norwood scoring goals, then you play someone like him with him in a partnership with a 2. In terms of what he's not good at, his heading isn't very good. I think most of his heading isn't very good. A lot of headers over the bar. His mobility isn't very good, and the rest pulling up for fouls a lot. Because obviously, if centre halves double mark him, and obviously if he's spending most of his time tussling high up the pitch next to a centre half, he will give away a lot of fouls. And I think the main stat for me, if I had to pick one on my scout, he had three recoveries in the opposition penalty area per 90 minutes in every game on average. He's very good at, for example, if you're trying to high press and you're on top of the other team, Ollie Hawkins can get the ball back and pass the ball and link it to some of your other players, but don't expect him to score a hatful of goals. If he plays regularly and gets 10 goals, you're happy with that, in my opinion.
But I think sometimes, Freddie, you get strikers I know strikers are judged by goals, but I think sometimes you have to look away from that. You've only got to look. I know this is making a. I'd say Olivier Giroud. You know, when he played for France in the World Cup, he scored 0 goals. But look at the work that he'd done for Griezmann and Mbappe. You know, he took a lot of players away to create the space for them. So I'd say let's look away from how many goals he scored and look at the work that he does for the team. Obviously, you've seen him play. You know, I've only seen clips from his goals at Portsmouth. You know, and he most of them you'd say were in the 6-yard box, weren't they? Really, I don't think he scored a goal on there that was outside the 6-yard box.
No, exactly. He's a sort of player to score those goals from inside the penalty area and tie up a centre half. That's exactly why you would play him. But yeah, if Lambert's looking at him to play him sometimes at centre half, I wouldn't bother personally. He filled in when Portsmouth had injuries at centre half, and Kenny Jackett didn't know what his back four was, but you don't want him playing there regularly. More than likely, he's a very good squad player. He'll be under the salary cap, like you mentioned as well. I don't think it's a bad transfer at all. And the only reason why Portsmouth got rid of him is because, well, we got John Marquis and Ellis Harrison, and we only play one up front. So really, as a third, who are you going to employ as a third striker, aren't you?
So that makes sense. That was going to be my question to you, Freddie. Why, if you're giving him quite a nice little review now, why is Kenny Jackett getting rid?
Simply because Ellis Harrison could do everything that Hawkins can, but is more mobile and more clinical. Also doesn't get drawn up for fouls a lot. He's very good off the ball in terms of tussling with the centre half, but not fouling him. And yeah, I would prefer Harrison as a player, in my opinion. But if you do need a target man striker, Ollie Hawkins is a good option on the cheap. And depending on how Ipswich play, he's a solid option. But it's not going to be. I don't think people are going to be blown away by him. And also, he can take a good penalty as well.
Freddie? Would you prefer Brett Pittman?
Brett Pittman last season. The problem with him was I think this was 3 seasons ago in Kenny Jackett's first season, where he got Brett Pittman on a P. He scored 25 goals in the league, and the entire tactic was about feeding Brett Pittman, which, even though he scored 25 goals in that team, the rest of the team didn't go up to the same level, which is why Portsmouth didn't get in the playoffs that season. Now, I think, again, Brett Pittman can always score you goals. If he's in a one-on-one situation, I never doubt Brett Pittman won't score. But the problem is his mobility off the ball isn't very good. So sometimes, especially last season, either when he played up front or he played as a number 10, which he said he didn't mind doing, he was a passenger at times. So it depends what sort of striker you want. Do you want to pay a lot of money for Brett Pittman when you got someone like Norwood? Or do you want to pay a lot less money on Hawkins, have him and he wouldn't mind being a squad player either, whereas Brett would want to play every week, obviously.
Yeah. So what you're saying is in Hawkins, we shouldn't really be pumping it long to him. He's a tall guy, but good with his feet.
I think the reason why I wouldn't say pump it long to him all the time, and Portsmouth ran into this for the last 2 years, when you have a very tall striker up front, especially with one up front as well, the style of play just gets very one-dimensional, and teams can easily deal with that. You don't want to go back to Mick McCarthy Championship days, do you? Exactly.
Really.
with Hawkins, I think he'd be great in a 4-4-2 with Norwood next to him. Personally, I don't know how Ipswich play though. If it's a 4-2-3-1 or a.
I don't think Lambert does either, mate.
He played 4-4-2 mainly last year, didn't he? But then I think his preferred was to play 4-3-3. So in a 4,
we're hearing that, aren't we? We're hearing him.
4-3-3. So I think I think to start off he'll be a squad player and he'll come off the bench, and he seems like a good option.
Depending on who your wingers are. Well, for example, with Portsmouth, we had the luxury of having Ronan Curtis and Jamal Lowe, both wingers who love to cut inside, create a load of space, very good at passing and very clinical as well. So if you have wingers or inside forwards like that, Ollie Hawkins is a decent fit, but it just depends how you use him. If for example, 2 seasons ago, Portsmouth in those playoffs, Ollie Hawkins wasn't the right striker in those playoffs, simply because the tactics just devolved to long balls from the fullback or the centre half. So it entirely links to style of play and how you get the best out of him. But as I would say, don't play him at centre half. He's not centre half as much as he said he would do.
I don't think he'd play there anyway, would he? He's only really an emergency.
Yeah.
But I think he covers, like I said, he's probably handy in the salary cap. You know, he can play there if required. So we've got enough players in that position anyway. You know, you could have a couple out injured. He could slip in for a game or two. But like you say, you wouldn't want to play him there on a regular basis.
How do you think you're going to do this season then, Freddie? What's the expectation down at Fratton?
Well, it's very weird because obviously after the playoffs, lots of fans wanted Kenny Jackett sacked, and obviously from an outside point of view, that sounds ridiculous with an unbeaten home league record, the cup runs, etc., etc. But the problem is, and I think this to a certain extent, the tactics that he employs do not suit the players that Portsmouth have. Portsmouth have excellent depth going forward, and it doesn't suit a long ball team, which in many situations is what happens. Portsmouth, Kenny Jackett's line is he loves to counter-attack very, very quickly above all else. So it can turn from, it doesn't matter if Portsmouth have loads of possession or want to pump it long. He always wants to attack all the time very quickly. So it gets really one-dimensional. The fans don't really like watching that style of football, even though it works. And unfortunately, in a cutthroat business like that, he's had 3 seasons, got dumped out in the playoff twice, and the worst performances of each season were in those two in those playoff series against Sunderland and Oxford, which is a shame. And I understand that Jackett's not going to go. Obviously, the board have backed him, and I've moved on from talking about whether he should be sacked or not because it doesn't really help anybody. But the depth that Portsmouth have this season is nowhere near as good as last season. They could easily finish below Ipswich, as that person said. The back four is the main question because you lost Christian Burgess. Jack Watmore's the only ball-playing centre-half we have, and he's coming off his 3rd cruciate knee ligament injury.
Did you sign Sean Raggett? Did you sign Raggett?
Yeah, we signed Sean Raggett, who was on loan last season from Norwich. As a half, very, very good at League One level, very good at dealing with crosses, but you need the centre-half next to him to pass the ball out from the back, which we don't have yet, in my opinion, unless they want to play Jack Watmore, and I hope we play him. And we only have 1 left-back and 2 right-backs if you count Haji Manoga, who's played for England at under-18 level, but we don't really know. So that's what Portsmouth needs to do. They need to shore up the depth in the back 4 and maybe 1 centre midfielder or cam. But apart from that, Portsmouth, I think, will be okay. They'll be in and around the playoffs. It just depends if you trust Kenny Jackett.
I think you'll be like us. You know, I think there's a lot of teams who could say we're going to be in around the top 6. You know, but it's vital, I think, for you and for us. You've got to get out of this league as soon as you can. The longer you stay in it, with the salary caps now, it's going to be really difficult.
Oh, precisely, and that doesn't really fit with what the board at Portsmouth want to do. Not in terms of not being ambitious or anything. They just don't want to be, for example, like a Peterborough or a Fleetwood and throw obscene amounts of money at it, which the club can't deal with, to try and get out of the league. They want to try and do it gradually and properly, which, if Portsmouth are losing in the playoffs every year, then eventually your patience is going to run out. But yeah, no, I think Portsmouth will be okay next season. It'll be around the same as Ipswich in terms of the quality of the squad. Very good attacking options, but they need to sort the back 4.
What kind of reputation has Mark Catlin got down there? That's my old boss from 20 years ago, would you believe, Freddie?
Oh, really? No, that's mental. Even though he's getting some flack recently, Mark Catlin's probably the best CEO that Portsmouth have had in donkey's years.
He's a top man.
Because if you go back to the Premier League years and then the subsequent fallout from that and nearly going bust, he's been the CEO since the Portsmouth Supporters Trust ran the club, and has been integral to how Portsmouth have been able to slowly and gradually improve while being financially sustainable. There are now developments for the ground. I think since the salary cap came in, Catlin's hoping to put some more of the money onto a development squad, which I think would be excellent for Portsmouth. And excellent CEO in my opinion. But mainly the only flack he's getting is due to around the manager, and that's really where most of the negativity that you may see comes from. But I still think he's excellent for Portsmouth. I wouldn't want rid of him at all.
Brilliant. That's good to hear.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Freddie. Really appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts. Hopefully catch up with you through the season.
Yeah.
But
of course, I'll always be around.
Perfect.
If you do want to hear some more stuff on Portsmouth and or the league, you can look at it on Pompey News now at wordpress.com. Or if you prefer podcasts, we run something called the PO Forecast, which is on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, and wherever.
Brilliant.
We sometimes go over general league stuff. For example, I think the most recent thing I wrote was about the salary cap. It's an opinion article, but it has links to everything, so you can understand it. So, and that's the most recent thing on the website, which Ipswich fans would want to read. So you can look at that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate that, Freddie. Catch up with you soon. But he's one of 3 transfers coming in.
There you go. Look, my son knows what he's on about. He's just said, Ollie Hawkins looks decent. There you go.
Yeah, well, don't believe everything you see from a YouTube video. So you should know that. You should know that by now, don't you? Anyway, moving on. Moving on to Stephen Ward. A fantastic point up here from George. Apparently, Town went for Garbutt over Ward. I don't know if he meant Garbutt over Ward or Ward over Garbutt, but there is a fake Alan Nixon account. I don't know who's so sad to create a fake Alan Nixon account, but they have done. I've got our transfer specialist waiting in the blue room. But first of all, Stephen Ward. Where are we on that one? Another signing I am not impressed with. It's underwhelming me so far. Hearing everything.
I mean, we've said on the podcast, haven't we? We've got all the youngsters coming through, some exciting youngsters there, and they've made it into the first team Finn Downs. But I do feel like you need those leaders. And I know he's getting on a bit. He's going to be 35 this week, Stephen Ward. So we've spoken about players on the downside of their career. So he's definitely on the downside of his career. But, I've been speaking to my mate Nick who sports Burnley and watched them for years. And, he said some of the things he said to me, for Burnley, only less than 3 years ago, solid defender, was good in the air, strong tackle, gets forward when he can. He's tall as well, so he could play at centre-half. He's kind of like an old-fashioned fullback. Scored an absolute weldy opening day of the season, 2017 at Stamford Bridge. So I think he used to be a striker. So, maybe he can add to our goal tally.
I think he was at Wolves when he played. He played up front.
McCarthy played him
at Wolves, yeah.
Yeah. So I like his leadership. He's had 50 caps for Ireland. So I like the leadership quality he's going to bring to town. We've said before, Rich, who would be captain if Skews and Chambers weren't around? It's a difficult one to make a decision. So we need more voices. We've said it before. We need more leadership voices, and I think he adds that.
Wait till you get that back format of Scouse, Wilson, Chambers and Ward. That'll excite you when you go down to... Look, for me, I think you see my thoughts on Twitter. He's 35. Yeah. People saying he can come in, he can mentor Miles Kenlock. Miles Kenlock, tomorrow morning, he might as well go into Lambert's office and say, get me out of here. I want to move. I want to play. Miles Kenlock's 24 years of age. He's under the 3rd manager now, and obviously all 3 of them, they don't rate him. Look, Ward has been a good player, but don't you think that always falls into the Ipswich, the signings? They have been good players. We signed Ivan Campo. He'd played for Real Madrid,
I love that signing. That's one of my favourites.
No, that was a weird one, wasn't it? But
it was really weird. Yeah.
Look, he's had a back injury. He's played 1 game since the restart.
Yeah.
It worries me his age, He could come in. He could be a solid signing. You don't know what you're going to get. But at his age, I'd rather sign someone down the leagues like your mate Elvis from Southend. And then I got dissed on Twitter by saying Vincent, blue suede shoes. I got dissed on Twitter saying Vincent Young could play at left back, and then someone comes and says, "Yeah, but he's played at right back." Hang on, did you not look at Colchester that he played over 60 games at left back?
Yeah,
someone like that, someone like him, Elvis,
good player.
6 times he got Player of the Month. He got Player of the Year, Matt. You said he got 80% of the vote.
Yeah,
he's got. He got 1 year left on his contract. Someone there, he's young. You get him in, and you believe in him. Stephen Ward. He's good for 1 season. We get promoted. Yeah, and I know we'll have more money to spend in the Championship. You've got to go over it all again. And you've got that left side, which seems to be a bit of a problem for us. And you're always looking to fill it, So if you're not, I'd probably, no, I wouldn't have him. I told you I wouldn't have him. I'm not going to change my mind. But Kenlock, I feel a little bit sorry for Miles Kenlock, I know everyone doesn't rate him, but
You've got to grasp it at some point.
And you did give him a red light, Rich. You did give him a red light with me.
I did give him a red light, but if the manager doesn't believe in you, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah. Elvis would be a solid sign for us. My friends at Southend, Mark Wallace and Bob Craven, told me that we could probably get him for 100 grand. That's pretty what Southend would sell him for.
See, with Stephen Ward, this is where I'm at with Stephen. I've seen a few people say that he can come in and coach Miles Kenlock. Well, in that case, let's remove some coaches, because we're getting more and more coaches. We re-signed Cole Skews, I was told, because he was another coach. Luke Chambers, another coach. How about we just start letting coaches coach and players play? Is Stephen Ward a like-for-like replacement to Luke Garbutt? The answer is definitely no, which then makes me question how we're going to play, because you've got an abundance of centre halves, and if you're bringing Hawkins in, who can play centre half as well as up front as a target man, it creates more questions than it does answers. We last year we were playing with a 3 with 5 in midfield. Garbutt was a winger, not a defender. Well, Stephen Ward's not a winger. Stephen Ward's a defender. Maybe in his heyday he could get up and down the flank.
Yeah, has he got the legs at 35 to do a season up and down on that left-hand side?
The answer for me is definitely, well, not definitely no, because I don't know, but I would think not at his age. So are we bringing him in to then bring somebody else in who's a winger, or are we changing shape again? It's just one of those, if it was a back 4, primarily a back 4, it's almost a Mark Kennedy signing.
I was going to say him.
Yeah.
Would you sign Josh Earl? Would you sign Josh Earl, Martin, over him?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
I know you liked him.
Love Josh Earl. Yeah, he looked a good player, but more as a centre half. Not really as your galloping left winger that's going to create, score. That's the important thing with Garbutt. He created and he scored. All right, there were free kicks, but he still scored.
He got 6 goals.
How often do you sit in the stands at Portman Road now and say, "Oh, I wish Darren Curry was still here"? Every time you get a free kick, because every time you got a free kick with Curry, you thought something special might happen here. You didn't think, "Watch out, Rose there with your Bovril."
Talking of free kicks, do you remember the Chambers free kick? I can't remember what game it was, the home game, and he's put it at the top of the North Stand. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, but you want to feel a bit of excitement with your set pieces, and Garbutt did bring that. I'm not saying Garbutt was maybe where he thinks he is in terms of contract. I don't know. I'm not his agent. I don't know what he's asking for. But it just, I don't know. I mean, Ellie Harrison, Ollie Hawkins, as the Pompey chap said there, bit of a downgrade. Garbutt, Ward, it's a bit of a downgrade. We're downgrading all over the shop. Luke Penning, talk to me. Make me believe, Mr. Penning. Make me believe.
Hi, Luke.
Hello, Luke. How you doing?
I'm good. I kind of agree with what Matt was saying, to be honest. Well, and what Martin was saying, to be honest, because Stephen Ward and what Rich was saying, he's 35. He's a fullback. He's not a wing back. He's not really going to offer you much attacking threat. One thing that does worry me a lot about Ipswich's defence, I'd like to hear any of your opinions as well, is how aging it is. You've got Wilson, who's 31, who ultimately came in as a free agent last summer and did a good job. You've got Chambers, who I think is about 34, 35 this upcoming year. And then you've got Ward in there as well, who's 35. So in terms of a team, so it seems
that's three players, Luke, that you'll need to replace next season.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's like, if you're a team that is ultimately wanting to get up the league, because I think of it, the quickest we get out with the league, we don't have to deal with the salary cap. I think that's what the issue is, that they want to bring in players, some of which have experience of promotion, maybe that don't have that losing mentality. But for me, as a fan and someone that pays attention to this kind of stuff quite closely, is there's no emphasis on the long term. Like, I've put this out on my Twitter feed a bunch of times, talk about how underwhelming I was when we were linked with Keogh, and the same with Ward. And loads of people were saying, "Oh, I don't really care as long as we get out of."
Yeah, but we've said it on here before, haven't we, Matt? We've said that before. There's no forward thinking, is there? No,
that's the thing. It's like, if you don't trust Kenlock, it's like, if you don't trust Kenlock, then we've had that conversation. Freddie was making some good points about Hawkins as well, but I think it's a strange one, really, because obviously, as you were saying before, with the formation that we had the most success with last season was a 4-4-2. You know, I think that was the only formation that we played that we didn't actually lose a game. So that ended up being quite effective. But primarily, the main formation that we played was a 3-4-1-2 with the 3 centre backs and the wing backs. Obviously, Ward doesn't really fit that, in my opinion.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that comment there, F1 Albert. It's the same cycle. Young players cost money. Match just said the guy from Southend is available for 100 grand. He's 100 grand.
Elvis Bull. I struggled to pronounce his last name. Ramona. Yeah, he played in the away game that we played Southend earlier in the season. I think the 3-1 win. And he's a player that I've kept my eyes on for a while. And actually, if you think of it, like you think of teams like Luton, they had James Justin and Jack Stacey. There were 2 players that complemented themselves. They could bomb on, they could defend, they were solid. In our way, it's like you've got a more, I think Kane Vince-Young's more of a wing back in the sense that he's really good defensively, but he excels more going forward. We haven't really had that much from a fullback, for years.
Since Carlos Edwards, probably.
Yeah, since Carlos Edwards, winger and fullback. But you look on the other hand and you look at Stephen Ward, 35. I think he was 4 months out injured. For me, it falls into the same category of the kind of James Collins type signing, where you've brought in someone that has a vast amount of experience, whether that be in the Championship and the Premier League. But you're kind of a lot. I think I notice is that we tend to, as fans, and maybe the club themselves, tend to pin a lot on hope. Like we hope that the player is going to be good. We hope that he's going to be good. But it doesn't. I was at the game. I think it was a 1-0 win when we played Rotherham, and I think Will Keane scored on his debut.
Yeah, Collins played well.
Collins was absolutely insane in that game. Played really well.
10 out of 10 performance. Yeah.
And then I think his other performance came against Bolton later on in the season, but he spent most of the time out injured. Like,
how many games did he play, Luke? Did he play 6 games?
I don't even know, but I'd probably say it's less than about 10 or 5, maybe.
Half a dozen max.
You think of Stephen Ward, someone that was with Stoke. I don't know what his wage is going to be now, but it seems very unlikely that Garber is going to come in here. The fact that they brought Ward in and they're saying, well, we're going to take a look at him. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. We hear that Garber is unlikely going to go to Sunderland due to the wage cap. And I think he's still in Liverpool at the moment. And then you're thinking of then like a couple of days later, it's like Ipswich have offered a contract to Stephen Ward. I don't know, but going on with Hawkins as well. I agree with you, Rich, in the sense that he's a good option, a squad option. I find it quite interesting how Freddie was talking up and saying, well, Harrison does a lot of the stuff that the Hawkins does, but he's better and mobile. And he was kind of saying like, well, Harrison is the better of the two, which is quite ironic considering that we got rid of him. Was a player
I'd have kept Harrison. I thought he was
all right. I was at the Sheffield United game last season, 2 seasons ago, when he scored, and I actually rated him in the West Ham friendly. I thought he was a pretty decent player. But yeah, it's interesting to see how times have changed. I do think that is something that we lack, though, bringing the Hawkins in, someone with height. If you look at our centre defensive partnership, I think our average height is about 6 foot. So there's not really anyone that we have that is really tall, hence why we don't necessarily score from corners into the box or, free kicks that are lumped in for someone to head on a ball. Doesn't really happen. Jordan Hawks has kind of said in there, plenty of youngsters out there for pennies in terms of today's market. There's a bunch of young players. You've got people like Luther James Wilden, who's at Stevenage, who was on the books of almost signing for Arsenal about 2 years ago. So there are young players out there.
Do you want me to say, Matt, what I always say? What does it come down to? Scouting. And
yeah.
We're not very good at it, are we?
It's a crazy one, really, because I don't think anyone, as fans, I would appreciate if I don't expect the head of scouting, even if we have one, or the director of football, to come out and tell us, what their plan is and how they operate. But I think it would be interesting. Those kind of, it's quite hard now with COVID and that sort of thing, but the kind of like I don't know what the word is, but like open forums where they'd invite people to talk about like what their plans are as a club and that sort of thing. I think it'd be very, very interesting to hear like from their recruitment, like how they operate. Like I can guarantee from people that have spoken to me and people that I've spoken to online and that have links within the club, they were telling me that how it's very data operated right now. They're all like, sites like Instat and Y-Scout that a lot of clubs are using primarily to cut costs. It was quite interesting the other day. Like, I was reading an article in The Athletic about how Sheffield United heavily rely on a Twitter account called Blades Analytics, who basically was a fan, similarly to me in some ways, who cared a lot about the club's recruitment and scouting, and basically made an account about Instat, Y-Stat, Instat and Y-Scout, and was talking about specific players that they thought would, be suitable for Sheffield United. And Sheffield United ended up employing them. Arsenal now, I know it's in the Premier League, but they've basically furloughed a bunch of staff, recruitment staff, in aid of data accounts and reliable Twitter accounts and that sort of thing.
Someone get Lee O'Neill on the phone and talk to this man, because he knows what he's on about. It
is interesting though. Like, you would think that, like, I'm not professionally. I didn't study a degree in scouting and in recruitment. I studied a degree in film, but as a fan, I try to be realistic in the sense that I don't try and let being a fan of the club cloud my judgment in the players that I talk about, because ideally, like, if you're saying, oh, we should sign this so-and-so player that costs like 5 million, it's not realistic. The post salary cap now, lower league players, League One, League Two gems are kind of what we're going to be going for,
There's another one, Stephen Taylor. That went well.
Yeah, Stephen
Taylor.
Let's hope he doesn't fall into those categories. We're now seeing, everyone's putting on the comments here, we are seeing these older veteran players doing 2-3 games.
I think there's like a cynicism when it comes to thinking of the older kind of, older player, in the sense that, are they really going to be like that kind of exciting one? But yeah,
we hope not, don't we? We hope he turns in and he plays well.
And you've got to find the positives. You've got to find the positives. He's going to be wearing a blue shirt, so we've got to be positive and get behind him 100%.
That one right there, but not one with my name on it. But like, in the fact that as a club, we need to be in the position where any player that comes in, we were saying earlier, I'm not knocking any player before they come in and sign for us. I was talking the other day to someone from, I think, a Northampton Analytics account on Twitter. They were telling me that Cornell, really good goalkeeper, I think 13 clean sheets last season for Northampton, started off his career at Swansea, has had experience throughout multiple of the leagues, and only his performances drop seemingly when the interest of Ipswich and I think clubs like Derby as well were interested in him. I, funnily enough, did a video in December the 8th, 2019. When was the first link that we got of David Cornell? I managed to find it on my Twitter feed, I think, before it got even reached the main market. So I knew that they were in the link for another goalkeeper then. And then primarily when it came to the salary cap, I was like, well, you think of it, the money and how the restrictions and constraints are, you're going to want to, I would rather us bring in another centre back who's around 26, 27, who can, build for a couple of years. You think of people like Enciala, who are necessarily probably going to move on this summer, from what I've heard. You need to be doing things like that, but I don't know. It's a strange one.
You are right. Have we got an eye on the future? Even when we were doing okay last season, and of course we obviously had the obvious drop off. I kept thinking to myself, this team would probably struggle in the Championship. Are you coming out of League One just to struggle again in the Championship, which no one would want?
Thing, like, quickly anyway, like people like Chambers, I think it's like, as I mentioned the ages earlier on, if we get promoted, teams that I mentioned this on the podcast before, but teams like Sheffield United, teams like Luton that have got promoted up successive leagues, teams like Lincoln as well, they've only rarely had to make a couple of changes in a couple of places.
Even Coventry, look at the average age of their team. They've made some good signings, but they're going to be the mainstay of the team that they had that won the league. Whereas us, if we went up, Scouse, Chambers, Wilson, Ward, they've got to go straight away.
Yeah.
I was watching quickly as well. I was watching earlier Livingston against Rangers, and last season we had John Guthrie, who now plays for obviously Livingston. He got a man of the match, and I think it was 0-0 at the end of Rangers, and they were praising him, saying how good in the air he was. He's left-footed. I think he's around 26, 27.
It's a pub league, Luke. It's a pub league up Scotland. Take a notice what happens up there.
It's a bit harsh.
No, but in the sense that we had them both on trial. One, I guess, was older, had experience in the leagues and that. But he was that kind of guy. And I mention this a lot. We lack like tall players in our defence, and that's something that we should be eyeing this summer. Like, we should be getting a centre back in. We shouldn't be getting in another senior goalkeeper. As good as Cornell is, do we really want the whole Will Norris Holy situation where, you know, I think Will Norris actually said this after he signed for Burnley. It was like the best 11 players that were in training ended up playing in the game. There wasn't really like
great comments they were.
Yeah.
There wasn't really a set like. I think obviously with bringing in people like Ward, it does seem to me anyway, as someone from the outside looking, that we're going to play four at the back, or two centre backs and a right back and a left back.
It does that way.
I even think that we need a winger in, because if you think of, we're not really blessed at wingers. We've got Lancaster, Edwards, who's been linked with Luton. You know, a guy that when he came in and made his debut at Blackburn first season, he looked like this guy. He was so direct, could take people on, had shots at goal, got some goals in. I think he scored against Norwich, scored against Swansea. He's got some very important goals, and then just faded. Like, I think he played the first time he played Accrington Stanley. I think he was a shadow of himself. And from then onwards, he just, you know, since he got in the Wales squad, it didn't really click for him, which was a worry. You know, he had Lancaster, a guy that come on his debut against Millwall, and this kind of guy that was willing to take people on, and that kind of exciting thing that we get when we see one of our own players make their debut or play in the game.
Flair.
But if we're going for wingers, we don't really have many other than them two. You've got people like El Mazzuni and Dobra who preferably prefer like a number 10 role. You know, you've got Judge as well. What position is he? Is he going to play on the wing now with a four?
Well, this is it. Because if you're bringing in another striker that's better in a 4-4-2, that would rule out Alan Judge playing behind the striker, because that is Alan Judge. Is probably his favoured position. So again, you're right. We're building a squad, but what sort of squad are we building? Luke, very quickly, because I've got David Cornell still to run through in 1 minute or less. Luke, what are your thoughts on David Cornell? No, I've got a clip to play, you see, and it's a fairly lengthy clip from the Talking Cobblers podcast. What are your thoughts, before we get their thoughts and the guys' thoughts, on David Cornell?
Well, I think he's, you know, one of those League Two, League One, you know, very strong, capable goalkeepers. I think he's 29, so he's got a couple of years left in him. But I think in salary cap terms, there's no... You see a lot of clubs anyway, they operate with having the one senior goalkeeper that they either generally have one of their like youngsters play on the bench, or they loan one in from the Championship or League One. Think of teams like Wimbledon who've done it this season with Colonel Truman and last season with Aaron Ramsdale. We, in salary cap, with the restrictions that are right now, we shouldn't really be going for another senior player, a goalkeeper, because there's positions that we've suggested, like wingers and centre backs and those kind of positions that are more important. And as fans and as people that, you know, follow the club closely, we know that it doesn't take us, you know, it doesn't take us many degrees in scouting to know that they're the players that we need, and we don't necessarily need a goalkeeper. I think it comes from the club having a worry that if Holy was to get injured, you know, Shibek maybe, I don't think Harry Wright, because I really think at the age of 21 he needs some first team and a loan under him. But someone like Shibek who did look well, you can't really expect someone with him, with only I think one professional appearance to his name in the Leeson Cup, to come in at a League One game, whether it be against, you know, Sunderland, for example, and, you know, be confident in the sticks. You've got someone like Cornell who was attracting interest from Derby. You know, that says a lot about the goalkeeper. You know, he's not going to be the kind of type to sit on as a bench and let Holy do it. At the same time, you think of Holy, he was coming last season. They viewed him as a project, a backup to Bart before he left. That's why they ended up bringing in Will Norris as the number one. I think that was the first season at Ipswich was where he had more than like one or two a week, you know, goalkeeping sessions. So he never really experienced that before. So it's a very interesting one, but I do have this worry about, you know, this whole Cornell and Holy situation.
Musical chairs.
Well, it really is. It really is.
That's the thing. I understand about like having two number ones pushing for the spot. You need to have your mind as a manager, as Paul Lambert. We haven't even heard from him. You know, we had Cole Scouse today talking about how the club needs to push on and we can't dwell on last season. We need the manager talking about it. You know, teams like Leyton Orient are having like 8-10 minute interviews with their managers talking about how they're doing stuff like that. We need transparency from our club. It's what I appreciate from podcasts like this, and the fact that we're telling our opinions. We're not scared to say like things in regret of being told to, to not talk about it. I want that from the club. Obviously, there's a degree of transparency that they can have and can't have with people. You were talking it from the guy from I think it was either Portsmouth or the Northampton podcast. I think it was the Northampton podcast. I think you said, Martin, that they're actually going to interview their chairman next week. There's not many podcasts other than I think King's Bangor who did an interview with Leo Neal. And he was actually opening up. Yeah, to come out and talk about it. I've tried to contact this. I've tried to contact people in the scouting department to get interviews with them because I'm actually interested to hear their thoughts. Someone that's interested in this, I want to hear their journey. How they got into it, that sort of thing, as well as what their daily routine is. Because if you're a database scout, primarily you're going to be. I've got another guy on my Twitter feed was saying how when Mick McCarthy days, he had a friend who was just sent DVDs to watch and then had to note things down. Like
they weren't Paul Jewell ones, were they?
In my opinion, it comes from having you need real scouts as well. Seeing players in the flesh. Yeah, it spots a lot of these injury concerns. Think of people like Ward, Will Keane, other players that you can name of, most are signings who are coming and had injury records. If you're Collins, seeing a player in the flesh,
Taylor.
Collins as well, you're seeing players in the flesh, you're seeing something different. You need to have them two working together. Maybe it's part of our relegation to League One, even though we don't really necessarily know that much about it. That is why we're having to operate more on a database, option. I hope within the next month or so to actually get some clarification from the club. I'm actually going to be sending a letter to them. Not that I have a proper CV, not that I proper have a CV, but to try and figure out.
So guys, you've heard from Luke, and obviously I mentioned the Paul Jewell DVD because obviously he's still watching that DVD of the Derby game, I believe, isn't he? That was the last time we heard of Paul. He was watching the game. Yeah, he's in the DVD room. What are your thoughts on kind of before I play this interview? Good signing. Could be a good keeper, number one. What are your thoughts?
Well, Luke just said about Prizebeck, about you can't throw like someone in who's not played many games. I'll just give you a name. Richard Wright. They threw him in when he was 17 years of age, You
can't compare the two.
No, but I'm just saying, this is what's wrong with the club, We're getting two keepers. We only need one. You need one who's going to play. You need one who's happy to sit on the bench. And it's going to be musical chairs all over again. Because
Matt, what do you think?
I don't think Holy's really that good enough for Ipswich Town. I know I've said before he's a keeper that suits us in the third tier, but reading between the lines of what Jimmy Walker's said about him, he's a good character, he's great around the place and all that kind of thing. I just think that covers some weaknesses, and they don't trust him 100%. Hence, Cornell's coming in. That's my view.
Okay, so I did sit down with Neil Egerton of Talking Cobblers, something I'm often accused of myself, to grab his thoughts on David Cornell. The extended version will be available on YouTube from tomorrow morning. However, I could only upload a certain aspect of it. I started by asking Neil what his thoughts of Cornell were.
It's a good question. And I don't really know how to answer it because I'm not entirely sure, mate. I guess as a new signing for you guys, you want to hear that he's the next Lev Yashin or something, or someone incredible. But I don't think he is. He's really difficult to explain what sort of goalkeeper he is because he's polarised our fan base a little bit ever since he's joined, and I'd probably say 60% of the fan base think he's awful and hate him. 40% think he's okay and capable.
Wow.
I'm more on the 60% side of things, I think. Sorry.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know. If you signed him to be your number one,
Well, this is the question I was going. I believe we have. We've got Thomas Holy, who is a fairly decent keeper at this level, but the management have never really seemed keen on him because last year we brought in Will Norris on loan, and they had that rotation policy going on. So I think he has. Do you think he can be a number one at this level?
No. Sorry.
This is not going the way I thought it was going to go. What? Okay, so what are his shortcomings?
Well, how long have you got?
How long have you got? Let's do it.
He's not a leader.
Okay.
In my opinion, he doesn't. You get some very vocal goalkeepers who clearly have a good handle on, organising their defence and those in front of him, and he doesn't really do that. He is vocal, but it doesn't really. I don't think anyone really listens to it. Right? Yeah, he's pretty ropey on long shots. I've never felt comfortable, and he's conceded quite a few from distance where he should be saving them. Really, he's not. He doesn't command his area, so he's not.
Oh God, another one.
I'm not doing him much help here, am I? Sorry.
No, we've got a long history of keepers not commanding areas, so
he'll fit right in.
Brilliant. So, wow. I mean, so were you relieved, for a better term, when play resumed and he wasn't in goal?
Look, I wouldn't necessarily say I was relieved. I'd say we've got two keepers, or we had two keepers. So we had him and we had Steve Arnold, who we signed from Shrewsbury. And Steve Arnold's bigger than Dave Cornell in stature. He commands his box more. I still feel a little bit nervous with Steve Arnold in goal, to be honest, but less nervous than when David Cornell was in goal. And that's not to say that Cornell didn't have some good games for us, and he kept quite a few clean sheets as well. I think that was probably more to the point, the defence in front of him than him. And he is a good shot stopper. He does have a tendency to make some great saves, which is obviously important in his role. And he's pretty good at one-on-ones. But the best way I could describe him is a bit of nothing, really. He's just a bit of a nothing keeper.
And there we go.
That was a glowing reference.
Boys, I did finish with a Bart reference. So guys who will watch the full video back will know tomorrow. But I asked him, so he's no Bart Spilikowski, and he said no. I've got to be honest. I walked in to the interview expecting to have a little bit of a glowing back at me because people I've spoken to have said he's a good goalkeeper. That's what I got. What you thought?
Well, it's an interesting take in it because you have to presume that Jimmy Walker's watched him several times and has obviously influenced Lambert's decision on bringing him in.
Sorry.
Sounds like our kind of keeper. Do they see him as a bit of raw material they can mould? I don't know. It certainly wasn't a glowing recommendation, was it?
No, it was not. Yeah. I honestly couldn't believe it. And I think, Rich.
See, I agree with him there, Adam Flat. When a lot of players leave, they don't get a glowing reference, a lot of them. So like I said before, let's wait and see until he's played. Let's not judge him. Let's see what he can do.
But this is where I disagree, because who knows a club better than its fans? People signing Will Keane will say the exact same thing. People signing Luke Varney would say the exact same thing. Fans know players the best. This is a podcaster. This is a podcaster. This is not. This is somebody who is. What reason has he got? What reason has he got?
Luke Varney, Will Keane. You know about them. David Cornell. I don't know a lot about him coming in. I've only had a look on the internet and I've listened to that Northampton fan. I want to judge him with my own eyes.
Is that not why we're here?
Yeah, we
Third
are.
tier.
But we can't be on here every week slating people. We have to give them a bit of a chance.
I think you have to be honest and say this guy knows him.
Martin. We haven't seen him play.
This guy knows him better than we do.
We've got seen him play at Pullman Road.
We sit there and say he's rubbish, and we haven't even seen him play.
Yeah,
I'm going off the recommendation, and the recommendation tells me. No.
In a few weeks' time, when he's let an absolute howler in, we'll say you were right.
Yeah, useless.
You're still in love with Bart. You need to get over it.
He's not. I am, because that should always be the benchmark, always, because otherwise you slowly and surely decline. You go from Richard Wright to.
We know we're declining because we are in League One.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, and I fully get that. And I do agree with we have to give these players an opportunity. And of course, once they've signed and the ink is dry, then I'll love them till the day is the day is long. But in the meantime, I'm going to question every single decision that football club makes, and I'm going to question whether or not this is a decision it should be making on a salary capped player. This is a player that's going to cost us against the cap.
Look, I think all three of us agree we don't need another goalkeeper. There's other areas of our team that I know, Matt, you don't rate Thomas O'Leary, but you're going to have the same. We'd have told. What's that?
I think about McGoldrick. I think Catherine is trying to say would have told United fans about McGoldrick something similar, and maybe so. We would have said great player, but there you would have said great player can't stay fit. He's not saying great goalkeeper, occasional mistake. He's saying
he felt nervous. He felt nervous watching him, didn't he? He's not good on long shots, good on one-on-ones. He does make. I think it was from Luke's video I saw. He makes very spectacular saves, from what I noticed. Even like run-of-the-mill saves. I think he was like kind of diving all over the shot. But I don't know. Rich is right. We have to get. He starts with a clean slate when he comes to Portman Road, and we see how he goes from there.
Okay. Answer me this question: why is Smith on trial at Colchester?
It's a pretty good question, that. Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I'd have Tommy Smith over NCR, wouldn't you two?
Look, we live in the past too much, Matt. Tommy Smith was a good player. Why is there not a queue of clubs wanting him? If Colchester's the best he can get,
Sunderland got him last season, so I don't think
he didn't play. He didn't play
in 6 months.
On the bench, he didn't play. He was there for 5 minutes. Look, I love Tommy Smith. I love Tommy Smith. He was a really good servant to our club. But do we really need to go back?
Is he better than what we've got? If he's better than what we've got, get him in.
Lambert don't rate him. It's obvious. He was training down early in the season. He don't rate him, otherwise he'd have had him.
Yeah, I mean,
good to see.
I've seen a few people. I've seen a few people sort of say, "Well, he's training with Colchester, so he can't be, or he's training here because, or whatever." A lot of times, players like where they live, and if the only local club is Colchester and willing to take him on, it's the same with obviously Dean Bowlett signing for Stowmarket Town. Stowmarket Town are a good non-league side, but Dino wanted to stay in the area as close as he possibly could following the birth of his child. Stowmarket Town was the only club that perhaps came in for him. Just because he's training with Colchester or signs for Colchester doesn't mean we should immediately write the player off as bad or we're living in the past. He is a left-sided centre half who at times looked like he'd just been introduced to the game of football, and at other times looked like Lionel Messi, particularly Brentford Boxing Day, where he's turning people inside the 6-yard box and sticking one in the top corner. But he's a left-sided centre half. He added balance. And his leadership. He's a local. He's come from the academy. He's a leader.
Why did Mick get rid of him then?
Well, we could have that question all day long. Why did Mick give it to Kiefer Moore? Was that due to funds, or was that due to because the player wasn't really what he wanted? Remember, Kiefer Moore at the time, if I'm right in thinking, was the only sellable asset the club had, and Mick needed money in the window, so he had to sell. Smith maybe was on wages, and Mick felt, well, Chambers can play inside. Smith's the odd one out.
As soon as Tommy left, we got the lad in from Spurs, didn't we? Vickers.
That was a while. Was there not a break in between Smith leaving and Cameron Carter?
Someone might be able to tell us in the chat. I'm pretty certain it followed when he went to. Where did Tommy go? Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado Rapids.
Yeah, I think he followed.
Ashley Bell. That's harsh. That's harsh. I like Tommy Smith. I would have him all day long. So Daniel Barnard again. Jordan Rhodes linked. Let's round the show up with Jordan Rhodes, guys. Where do we stand on that? 1 minute each. Luke, you can go first, and Luke. I do mean 1 minute because I only pay for an hour's limit. All right, mate. So 1 minute. Jordan Rhodes, fire.
I feel like it's like one of them ones where, as soon as he went to Norwich, I didn't think that he should come here.
Lost respect, you said?
Yeah, lost respect, I did. He was cupping his ears, I think, when they scored. I watched him play for Sheffield Wednesday a while back. I didn't think he was all that, to be honest. I think he played up front with Wickham, and Wickham outshone him. So for me personally, it's a no, and I still think it's like you're going back to reminiscing for old time's sake.
Matt?
I mean, I remember watching Jordan Rhodes over in a Senior Cup Suffolk competition over at Ipswich Wanderers when he played for Ipswich Town. But yeah, he got a little petulant, didn't he? Remember he scored for Blackburn against us and he punched the corner flag. Look, he's on massive. I think he's on big wages, on like 40 grand a week. He ain't going to come here for a couple of grand, is he? A week.
No,
he ain't going to produce his salary like that. So I think it's a non-starter for us.
Richard Moss, Cruncher, hard truth.
Apparently, he wouldn't come back anyway because he didn't like the way his dad was treated. So I think it's a non-starter.
Yeah. Politics there.
And when stories come up like that, Connor Wickham, you take him with a pinch of salt. You know, absolute garbage. Never gonna
first of all, sore feet for the beat still ongoing. You can, you can don't ongoing. It's not started yet. Well done, Martin. That beer is strong. What year am I in? 2008, some would say. Sore feet for the beat, guys. Just giving link is in the description. Make sure you head there. I would say Jordan Rhodes. If you wanted him, there is a way round a salary cap. You can get around that. There are grey areas. We've covered that previously. Anyone wants to know more, find me on Twitter. I'll happily discuss it with you. If the player wants to come and there are question marks over the way perhaps his dad was treated at the club, I don't know. That's a long time ago now. I would 110% take him. He's a goal scorer. And anybody saying Jordan Rhodes at this level would not win you promotion needs to give their head a wobble, because Jordan Rhodes is a fantastic striker at this level. So fantastic. As Rich said, it's almost a non-starter. It's almost pie in the sky, because the moment he's available, somebody in the Championship, that bottom six, they're going to snap Wednesday's hand off. And the problem is Wednesday have got financial problems, so they're not going to be dishing out, or we'll pay 80% of wages. They can't afford to. They'll be saying, you want him, you pay for him, you find a way. And as Mr. Hawks just says, Mr. Keeping It 100, anyone who doesn't want Jordan Rhodes in our team is madness, non-starter mind. I completely agree with that. So there we go, gentlemen. An hour and 2 minutes. Luke Penning took up 58 of those. I love you, Luke. I'm sorry. I love you, mate. I love you. A great show, guys. A great show.
Brilliant show.
What we always sit here and go, well, what's going to happen next week? And the same as we said last week. What will happen in the next 7 days? Prediction, bold prediction. What's going to happen in the next 7 days? And don't say sign Cornell, because that's not a bold prediction.
Well, we got 2 games at Colchester to look forward to. Fixtures announcement coming up. It's a big week. Spurs in less than a week. Big week going on. We're back in action.
As it's now past 9 o'clock and the little ones have been put to bed, what beers are we drinking, gentlemen? I have gone for a German beer this time, for some efficiency.
I went Jack Duckworth, Rover's Return. That's a beer of Moretti in there.
Hello, Ducky. And Richard Moss has gone for the Catalonia vibes. You want some chorizo now, don't you, Rich? Or some paella?
Yeah, a little tapas.
I've had a Chinese, mate.
How was your? I think Stephen May's called it the dirty weekend away.
Well, I'd like to say thanks to the wife, because we were supposed to go out tonight, and have a meal for her because it's her birthday today. So happy birthday! But I managed to change it till last night. So but what is it with women? What is it with women when they celebrate their birthdays about for 4 days? And
Ashley Bell, out of 3 games, how many wins?
So what are we?
2 Colchester, 1 Tottenham.
2.
Yeah, 2. I'd go with that.
Yeah, what? 1 Tottenham, 1 Colchester. You split
that's it.
Happy days.
Team of Spurs going to put out. If it's going to be a new ground, you've got to think it's going to be pretty full strength for you to follow.
Gary Rhodes, great goalkeeping coach. What about the West Ham game? We'll cover that next week, Daniel and Stephen Mays. Yes, can we all say happy birthday to your lovely wife? You are punching better than than Carl Frost ever did at Wembley against George Groves. You really and truly are. But on that bombshell, we will end. For this week, we are done. We are dusted. Have a good Monday, and I'll see you all next Sunday.
Hey guys.
Take care. Adios.